What if the provision you keep asking for has already arrived, but it did not arrive as money? You say, I have nothing. Yet you have 3 free hours every evening. You have an ability people repeatedly ask you to use. Someone has offered you advice. A friend is willing to introduce you to the right person. You already have access to a room, a tool, a platform, or a conversation. But because none of it can be deposited into a bank account, you dismiss it. Watch this. You may be standing in the middle of provision while calling yourself empty. Money is important. Bills do not disappear because you have talent. A financial obligation still requires a financial response. But money can purchase a resource. It is not the only resource. Time is a resource. Knowledge is a resource. Competence is a resource. Trust is a resource. Access is a resource. And opportunity is a resource. The tragedy is not only lacking something. The tragedy is possessing something useful and never recognizing it. An unrecognized resource remains inactive. An undeveloped ability cannot serve you. An ignored introduction cannot connect you. Unused time produces nothing. Advice you refuse to apply becomes noise. Provision may be present, but if you cannot identify it, organize it, and direct it toward an assignment, it will feel as though it never came. So before you announce, I have nothing, pause. Look again. Ask a better question. What has already been placed within my reach, and what responsibility does it give me? We are going to build a practical inventory. You will identify what you possess, determine what condition it is in, connect it to a specific assignment, and activate it without exploiting people, exaggerating your ability, or forcing the outcome. Say this aloud. Provision is bigger than cash. Again, provision is bigger than cash. Now you are ready to count. But before you can count provision correctly, 3 commonly confused words must be separated. Cash, provision, and wealth. Cash, provision, and wealth are related, but they are not interchangeable. If you confuse them, you will misjudge both your need and your capacity. First, cash is a medium of exchange. It allows you to pay a bill, purchase a tool, compensate labor, or obtain something you do not presently possess. Cash is useful. In many situations, it is necessary, but cash performs a limited function. It facilitates exchange. Second, provision is anything legitimately available that can meet a need or advance a worthy assignment. Cash may be provision, but so may a skill, a piece of information, an available hour, trusted assistance, permission to enter a place, or an opportunity to demonstrate value. Third, wealth is organized capacity. It is provision that has been developed, connected, protected, and directed so it can keep producing value. Write this down. Cash can be spent. Provision can be applied. Wealth must be cultivated. Consider 2 people facing the same problem. The first has money but no clear plan. He spends quickly, purchases what looks impressive, and discovers that activity is not the same as progress. The second has less cash, but she understands the problem, possesses a useful skill, seeks counsel from someone she trusts, and follows a clear sequence. One person has currency without coordination. The other has modest currency but growing capacity. Which one is truly closer to a lasting solution? Now, do not misunderstand me. Expanding the meaning of provision does not make an overdue bill imaginary. We are not decorating hardship with beautiful language. If cash is required, then cash is required. But one urgent financial need must not be allowed to erase every other asset from your mind. Otherwise, pressure will make you spend what should have been developed, ignore what should have been applied, and overlook what could have become wealth. Here is the principle. Cash is a resource. Provision is a supply. Wealth is supply under wise organization. Say it again slowly. Cash is a resource. Provision is a supply. Wealth is organized supply. Now classify what is in your hands. Identify one form of cash you can direct, however modest. Identify one non-cash provision you can apply. Then identify one capacity you could cultivate until it repeatedly produces value. You now possess a better vocabulary, and vocabulary controls what you are able to recognize. But once the definitions are clear, the next question is uncomfortable. Why does pressure make intelligent people forget everything they still possess? Pressure does something dangerous to perception. It makes the loudest shortage look like the only reality. When the payment is due, the account is low, and the need is immediate, cash begins shouting. Time becomes quiet. Ability becomes quiet. Knowledge, relationships, credibility, and opportunity all become quiet. The shortage stands in front of you like a giant and announces nothing else matters. But you must distinguish between an honest diagnosis and a destructive declaration. It is honest to say, I do not currently have the cash required for this expense. That statement is specific. It identifies a real gap. But when you say, I have nothing, you have allowed one missing resource to cancel every present resource. Watch the cycle. Pressure creates tunnel vision. Tunnel vision produces poor counting. Poor counting produces passivity or panic. And panic damages the very resources that could help you move forward. Under pressure, you may sell your competence too cheaply because you forgot its value. You may neglect the time required to develop your ability because you want an instant result. You may misuse a relationship by treating a trusted person like an emergency machine. You may exaggerate what you can deliver and spend your credibility for temporary relief. You may even accept an opportunity that violates your purpose simply because it carries money. Desperation is expensive. And sometimes we ask for extraordinary intervention while ignoring very ordinary provision. We want a door to open, but we have not answered the message. We want a breakthrough, but the training is unfinished. We want new equipment, but the tool already in the drawer is still waiting to be used. Then we wonder why heaven seems quiet while our inbox is making all that noise. So, develop the discipline of the pause. When pressure rises, stop and name the shortage precisely. What amount is needed? For what purpose? By what time? What happens if it is delayed? Then ask a second set of questions. What ability remains? What time is available? What knowledge can be applied? Who can offer counsel? What promise must be protected? What opportunity can be evaluated? Specificity weakens panic because it separates the missing part from the whole picture. Now say this. I do not have nothing. I have not yet organized what I have. Again, I have not yet organized what I have. Scarcity of cash may be real, but it does not automatically mean the absence of provision. Clear vision allows you to see the difference. Yet clear vision alone is not enough. Resources become meaningful only when they are organized around a definite assignment. A resource cannot be evaluated properly until the assignment is clear. The same hour can be wasted on one activity and decisive in another. The same skill may be unnecessary for one problem and essential for the next. The same relationship may offer wisdom for your family but have no appropriate role in your business. Even correct information becomes clutter when it is not connected to a defined purpose. So stop saying only, I need more. More what? For whom? To accomplish what? By when? Vague desire creates imaginary shortages because everything appears necessary when nothing has been defined. Assignment language is different. Assignment language says, I need to produce this result for these people within this period. Now your mind has something it can organize around. Write this down. Every clear assignment contains 4 parts: a problem, a people, a result, and a present stage. What problem are you addressing? Who are the people you intend to serve? What useful result should they receive? And what is the immediate stage, not the final dream, not the empire in your imagination, but the next stage that must be completed? Suppose someone wants to launch a small service. He begins thinking about a large office, expensive equipment, a full team, a polished brand, and every system required for a mature organization. Before serving one person, he is already worried about managing 500 employees. Slow down. Your first assignment may simply be to produce one useful result for one real recipient and learn from the experience. Watch what clarity does. The office may belong to a later stage. The team may belong to a later stage. The advanced system may belong to a later stage. If you drag tomorrow's requirements into today's assignment, you will feel poor in the presence of sufficient provision. Clarity does not guarantee that you possess everything you need. It reveals what you actually need next. That is power. Now write one assignment in a single sentence. I will address this problem for these people by producing this result, and my immediate stage is this. Then circle the immediate result. Do not circle the final dream. Your dream may inspire you, but your next result must instruct you. Say this: purpose makes provision visible. When purpose becomes specific, hidden provision becomes visible because every resource can now be tested against a clear target. Does it serve this problem? Does it help these people? Does it produce this result? Does it belong to this stage? With the assignment defined, the inventory can begin first with the resources carried within you rather than around you. The first inventory is not around you, it is within you. I call it the internal ledger, and it contains 3 resources: competence, knowledge, and time. Now, this ledger must record usable capacity, not flattering descriptions. Do not write, "I am gifted," and leave it there. Gifted to do what? At what level? For whose benefit? A resource inventory is not a place for applause. It is a place for truth. Begin with competence. List the tasks you can perform reliably, the problems you have solved before, and the abilities you could strengthen enough to serve your present assignment. You must separate 3 things: inclination, skill, and competence. Inclination means you are drawn towards something. Skill means you have learned how to do it. Competence means you can produce a dependable result. Enthusiasm is wonderful, but enthusiasm is not evidence. You may love music, but your neighbors should not have to suffer while you call that love a profession. Ask yourself, what can I do now? What can I do with guidance? What must I develop before I promise a result? The second entry is knowledge. What do you understand about the problem, the people, and the process? What useful information is already available? What specific gap must you close next? Information is not automatically knowledge. You can collect books, save articles, attend meetings, and still remain unable to explain or apply what you encountered. Information is what you possess. Knowledge is what you understand well enough to use. When you can apply it, test it, or teach it clearly, it has become active capacity. The third entry is time. Be honest here. People do not have equal freedom, equal responsibilities, or equal energy. But every person must know what governs the time that is available. Take your weekly calendar and examine it. Mark fixed duties. Mark discretionary hours. Mark repeated interruptions. Mark the little intervals that disappear because nobody assigned them a purpose. Do not merely say, "I have no time." Say, "These hours are committed, these hours are recoverable, and this hour will serve the assignment." Watch how these resources multiply one another. Competence without time remains dormant. Time without knowledge wanders. Knowledge without application becomes storage. But when developed ability meets clear understanding and devoted time, internal capacity becomes usable. So write 3 entries now. Name 1 competence you will use. Name 1 knowledge gap you will close. Name 1 protected block of time you will assign. Be realistic, but do not be careless. You are not trying to impress yourself, you are trying to prepare yourself. Here is the equation. Ability plus understanding plus devoted time creates usable internal capacity. Say it aloud. What is within me must be identified, developed, and directed. That is your first ledger. But no significant assignment is completed by internal capacity alone. The next ledger concerns the resources that exist between people. The next ledger is relational, and we must begin with a moral distinction. People are not possessions. You cannot list a human being as though you own that person's money, influence, knowledge, or time. A relationship is not property, but trust within a relationship can make legitimate cooperation possible. That cooperation is a resource, and it must be honored. Look at the people around you by appropriate role. Who can advise you? Who can challenge your assumptions? Who might collaborate with you? Who could test your idea and tell you the truth? Who may be willing to make an introduction? Notice that I did not ask, who can give you money? If every relationship becomes a possible withdrawal, people will eventually avoid your account. Some people are present to provide wisdom. Some bring correction. Some bring skill. Some bring encouragement. Some can open a conversation. Do not demand from a relationship what that relationship was never designed to carry. The second relational resource is credibility. Credibility is the confidence people develop in you through honesty, consistency, competence, and completed commitments. It grows quietly. You arrive when you said you would arrive. You admit what you do not know. You finish what you agreed to complete. Over time, your word begins to reduce uncertainty. Credibility reduces friction. When trust has been protected, people are more willing to listen, recommend, cooperate, or entrust responsibility. But urgency can consume years of credibility in one afternoon. One exaggerated promise, one concealed weakness, one manipulative request, one claim that your contact basically approved everything when the contact merely said hello. Desperation says use the relationship before the opportunity disappears. Stewardship says protect the relationship even if the opportunity must wait. The third resource is access, legitimate entry to a place, platform, conversation, tool, community, or decision maker. But access is permission, not ownership. An introduction gives you permission to approach. It does not entitle you to attention, agreement, money, or another introduction. Imagine one person sending the same dramatic rescue message to everyone in the phone, demanding immediate help without explanation. Now imagine another person approaching someone appropriately. I respect your experience. Would you be willing to give me 20 minutes of feedback on this specific plan? Or, if you believe the work is ready, would you consider introducing me to one appropriate person? One request consumes trust. The other honors it. Now make 3 entries in your relational ledger. Identify one relationship you need to appreciate rather than use. Identify one commitment you must complete so your credibility is strengthened. Identify one form of access you must steward carefully and never presume upon. Write this principle down. People are not provisioned to exploit. Trusted cooperation is provision to honor. Your internal resources prepare you, and your relational resources connect you. But provision also appears as a moment that must be recognized and judged. Opportunity. Opportunity is not a guaranteed outcome. It is a timely possibility for applying your resources toward an assignment. That distinction matters because an opportunity often arrives wearing work clothes. It may look like a small responsibility, a difficult problem nobody wants, an invitation to learn, or a chance to demonstrate reliability when no applause is available. If you only recognize provision when it arrives with immediate cash, you may reject the very moment designed to develop your capacity. There are 3 ways people respond to opportunity. The first person ignores it because it does not pay immediately. The second chases it because it looks exciting. The third evaluates it because it may or may not serve the assignment. The first is controlled by cash. The second is controlled by excitement. The third is governed by purpose. Every open door is not your door. A door may be open and still lead you away from your assignment. If it consumes your attention, weakens your responsibilities, or produces no relevant value, its openness does not make it wise. So apply this filter. Does this opportunity fit the assignment? Will it serve people honestly? Will it develop a capacity I actually need? Does it respect the responsibilities I already carry? And is the possible value worth the time, energy, trust, or money it will cost? Watch this. Discernment does not merely ask, can I enter? Discernment asks, where does this lead? Now record 2 things. First, identify one overlooked opportunity, perhaps a small place to practice, learn, serve, or prove reliability. State how it connects to your present assignment. Second, identify one attractive distraction. State what it would consume and why it does not belong to this stage. Opportunity is provision, but opportunity requires judgment. You do not ignore every door, and you do not enter every door. You evaluate the door by the assignment. The 7 resource categories are now visible: competence, knowledge, time, relationships, credibility, access, and opportunity. The next movement turns these scattered observations into a complete, usable inventory. Now put the 7 resources where you can see them. Create 7 columns: competence, knowledge, time, relationships, credibility, access, and opportunities. Do not leave them floating in your imagination. What remains vague cannot be managed with precision. Under every column, record 4 things. First, what exists now. Second, what condition is it in? Third, how is it relevant to the assignment? Fourth, what is its next responsible use? Then grade each entry with one of 3 labels: ready now, needs development, or not relevant to this assignment. That last label will save you from unnecessary activity. Something may be valuable and still be irrelevant to your present stage. You do not have to activate every resource simply because you possess it. Now be honest. If you list competence, provide evidence. What result have you produced? If you list access, identify whose permission makes that access legitimate. If you list a relationship, ask whether trust is current or merely remembered. You cannot call someone you have neglected for 10 years your strong connection because their number still works. But honesty must also protect you from false scarcity. Ask what can be borrowed with permission, shared through cooperation, taught by someone willing, exchanged fairly, or developed over time. You do not need to own every resource personally for it to become legitimately available. And record liabilities beside the assets. Perhaps trust has been damaged. Perhaps your knowledge is outdated. Perhaps your time is overcommitted. Perhaps your ability is still untested. Perhaps your access depends entirely on consent that has not yet been given. A truthful inventory includes both strength and condition. Imagine someone with very little cash preparing to test a useful service. The inventory reveals one dependable skill, practical knowledge of the problem, 5 focused hours this week, 1 trusted advisor, a record of completing commitments, access to a community where feedback can be requested, and 1 small opportunity to test the service. Is that person fully supplied for every future stage? No. But is that person empty? Absolutely not. The inventory has exposed enough provision for the next responsible step. Now mark 3 items. Put a star beside your strongest resource. Underline your most neglected resource. Circle the resource that must be repaired before it can be used responsibly. That circle may be more important than the star, because undealt with weakness can sabotage recognized strength. This document is not a motivational fantasy. It does not tell you that you can do everything. It tells the truth about what you can do, what you must develop, what you should not use yet, and what you do not need for this assignment. Say this aloud. What is counted can be considered, and what is considered can be coordinated. You now have a resource map instead of a vague feeling of helplessness or potential. But an inventory only shows what is present. Provision becomes productive when separate resources are connected into a sequence. Resources gain power through combination, order, and timing. Possessing the right things is not enough. You must connect them in the right sequence. Return to the person testing a small service. Knowledge helps define the offer. Competence produces one useful result. Protected time makes the test possible. A trusted advisor examines the result and gives correction. Credibility earns attention from someone willing to listen. Access brings the work before an appropriate audience. Opportunity allows the person to test, learn, and refine. Each resource alone is limited, coordinated. They begin to move the assignment. Write this down. A pile contains resources. A system assigns every resource a function. Many people do not have a resource problem. They have a coordination problem. Everything is present, but nothing has been arranged. Use this 5-move coordination map. First, clarify the next result. What must be completed now? Second, select only the resources relevant to that result. Do not bring the entire inventory into one small assignment. Third, identify the missing link. What prevents these resources from producing the result? Fourth, arrange the order of use. What happens first, second, and third? Fifth, define evidence of completion. How will you know this stage is finished? Watch the third move carefully. The missing link may be cash, but it may also be permission, practice, information, trust, timing, or a smaller first step. If you diagnose every gap as money, you will keep requesting cash for problems cash cannot solve. But when cash truly is the missing link, be precise. How much is required? What will it purchase? When is it needed? What exact result will it enable? Precision turns a vague desire into an intelligible requirement. Clear gaps also produce better requests. Do not merely say, "Can you help me?" Ask for the resource actually needed. Would you review this proposal? Can you recommend appropriate training? Would you consider making an introduction? May I use this tool for a limited period? Would you collaborate on this stage? Or, when appropriate, would you consider funding this defined part of the work? A specific request honors the other person because it allows an informed answer. And do not activate everything at once. Unnecessary motion wastes attention. It confuses priorities and strains relationships. Calling 10 people before testing your idea is not coordination. It is broadcasting your confusion. Take your inventory and draw 3 arrows. Connect 3 existing resources to one next outcome. Perhaps knowledge directs competence, time activates competence, and feedback improves the result. Now you have a sequence. Say this slowly. Possession creates potential, but organization creates provision in motion. You can now identify the real missing link without automatically calling it money. You can arrange what exists into a staged plan, but coordination creates power, and power always raises a moral question. How will these resources be activated without damaging people, truth, or timing? A worthy assignment does not justify an unworthy method. You cannot build a lasting work by consuming the integrity required to sustain it. So place boundaries around every resource you activate. The first boundary is this. Do not exploit people. Learn the difference between invitation and pressure, collaboration and entitlement, gratitude and manipulation. You may explain a need, present an opportunity, and make a respectful request. But another person's kindness does not become your right. If someone must be frightened, shamed, or emotionally cornered before cooperating, you are not stewarding a relationship. You are consuming it. The second boundary, do not exaggerate your capacity. Tell the truth about your experience, your limits, the risks, and what still needs development. Confidence is not pretending to possess what you do not possess. Confidence is standing honestly within what you can deliver while developing what you cannot yet deliver. The third boundary, do not force timing. Preparation is not always delay, and patience is not passivity. A skill may need practice, trust may need repair, knowledge may need updating, an opportunity may need testing. Some resources must mature before they can carry greater weight. Pulling on fruit does not make it ripen faster, it merely damages the branch. And here is a fourth test. Do not pursue a new assignment by neglecting responsibilities already entrusted to you. Growth that abandons duty is not responsible growth. Before any action, ask 5 questions. Is it truthful? Is permission clear? Is the exchange fair? Is the promise deliverable? Will this decision preserve trust if the outcome takes longer than expected? Imagine being offered quick access to an important person, but only if you overstate your relationship with a mutual contact. The shortcut seems small. You tell yourself, once they see the value, it will not matter how I entered. No, it will matter. Access gained through distortion carries weakness into the foundation. Refusing that shortcut may delay one conversation, but it protects your credibility, the mutual contact, and the larger assignment. Write this down. Integrity is not an ornament attached to progress. Integrity is productive capacity. Trust preserved today creates room to operate tomorrow. Now, identify one response. Is there an action you must stop? A promise you must correct? A limitation you must disclose? Permission you must obtain? Do it before you take another step. The goal is not merely to arrive, it is to arrive with your character, relationships, and truth intact. You now have an ethical framework for activating provision without destroying it. The framework is complete. The final movement must turn recognition into an immediate decision, a repeatable practice, and a new identity of stewardship. Now the decision belongs to you. You have redefined provision. You have exposed the blindness of cash-only thinking. You have clarified the assignment, counted 7 categories of resources, connected them into a sequence, and placed integrity around their use. Understanding has brought you to the door. Action must carry you through it. Within the next 72 hours, complete your 7-column inventory. Choose one next outcome. Schedule one protected block of time. Develop one weak resource. Then make one respectful, specific request for the feedback, permission, training, access, collaboration, or funding truly required. Do not begin with an action so large that it becomes another excuse. Make it small enough to complete, but meaningful enough to produce evidence, learning, or service. One finished test, will teach you more than 10 magnificent intentions. Review your inventory regularly. Time changes, responsibilities change, knowledge develops, trust can grow or weaken, opportunities appear and disappear. Stewardship is not a one-time exercise. It is the discipline of continually recognizing what is present and directing it toward purpose. Then teach this framework to your household, your team, or a trusted partner. Let provision become a shared language. When someone says we have nothing, ask, have we counted correctly? What do we know? What can we do? Whom can we approach honorably? What access exists? What opportunity belongs to this stage? Now say this with conviction. I will count honestly. I will develop faithfully. I will honor relationships. I will protect credibility. I will pursue clear purpose. I will act with courage and integrity. I will organize what is present. You may have a genuine financial need. Seeking appropriate financial help does not make you weak, and recognizing non-cash provision does not make the bill disappear. But you are not required to adopt the identity of an abandoned beggar merely because one resource is missing. You can acknowledge the need and still stand as a responsible steward. So return to the question, what if the provision you keep asking for has already arrived, but it did not arrive as money? Perhaps it arrived as ability, perhaps as time, perhaps as trust, knowledge, access, or opportunity. Your responsibility now is to recognize it, organize it, and activate the next right resource. Do not say, I have nothing. Declare, I will faithfully organize what is present, and let your next responsible action continue the message.